If we're more aware of our own traumas, then we're more aware of our own behaviors. We walk with more intention because we have more awareness. And if we go from awareness, the next step is alignment. We make a change. We've now received information, we do something with it. After that is the alchemy. It's the magic. Socially, globally, what I want to see are more people being aware of their traumas so that they're not spreading them on other people.
Today, I'm joined with Annie Emprima, has walked the path from military to metaphysics. In 2016, she deployed to the Middle East with the US Army and is now a metaphysics trauma researcher and author of the forthcoming book, Trauma Whispers Before It Roars. Annie's work explores how trauma can show up through the body, relationships, intuition, family lineage, inherited patterns, and the stories we carry without always knowing where they begin. With the help of what she calls whispers, a metaphysical capability that begun during her deployment, Annie helps people listen for the deeper messages beneath fear, pain, shame, survival, and generational trauma. Through her unique Emprima methods, she offers a unique lens for healing across the whole self, mind, body, and soul. This is a conversation about courage, healing, and what can happen when we stop hiding from ourselves and come back home to who we are. Welcome, Annie.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm really excited for this conversation. What an interesting conversation, and what you've done. What is one of the most courageous things you have done? Now, reading that out, I'm sure you've got a lot.
Investing in myself. That has been an incredible ride in uniting the parts of me and bringing them all home.
Yeah. And that's so interesting, isn't it? Because we have all these ideas, but it's actually listening and understanding who we are. You served in the US Army and deployed to the Middle East in 2016. Can you tell us about that chapter of your life?
Yeah, that was really the catalyst. About 4 days into my deployment, it took about 4 days because it's such a time zone difference from where I live and the Middle East is about 11 to 12 hours difference. So it took a couple days to acclimate to that shift. I didn't need to report to duty for about 4 days after we landed. On my way there from the barracks to the working tents, I felt something happen, and I can't explain what happened. In my mind, wanted to dismiss it very quickly of, oh, we're feeling things. It's got to be the oil in the air, or it's prayer in the air. It's a Islamic country, because I didn't have anything else in my drop down menu to pick. I didn't know what else it could be, but nobody else was complaining about feeling things on their skin. So I then had to reflect and say, okay, maybe it's just me. And what I didn't realize at that moment is my sensitivity has always been a bit higher than everybody else's or the average person. And I went from a level 2 to a level 8 on sensitivity. And that unfolded in quite an interesting series of events that have led me to be here doing this work.
Wow, how interesting that is. So during your deployment, you began experiencing what one describes as voices, visions, and downloads. What was happening for you?
I don't know exactly what was happening, but I can tell you how I was perceiving it. And it was coming in as if I had a hearing aid or an earpiece, like a Secret Service earpiece in my ear, and someone's talking to me, but no one else can hear it. And it would be, and I say whisper, it wasn't a whisper in how we would perceive a whisper. It was a whisper in that it wasn't loud. It would come in, and sometimes it was auditory, and sometimes it was that voice in our head for some of us that read books and we read, and then inside our head, we're also reading it in an internal voice, or we have conversations with ourselves. Sometimes it'll switch to that knowing voice, rather than an auditory. But it would say things like, don't go there. And so I would have to change direction of where I was walking.
Wow.
Or it would say, or I would feel hands on my shoulders just turning my body.
Wow.
Big, big hands. It was this blanket of energy moving me, go here. In religious settings, it might be called promptings, but I'm not particularly religious, so I will just say big hands moved me. They would lead me to places that I had no memo, no instruction of what's coming next, just putting me in a place at a particular time. And I have found that to happen many times over the past 10 years. And it would lead me to places. It led me across town one time, and just this feeling of, you need to go to this store 40 minutes away on the other side of the valley. And I walk into this store, and it's a metaphysical, more traditional sense of metaphysical shop, crystals and more modern new age crystals and incense and all these books. I'm like, what am I doing here? This is not my world. I may share the word, but I don't share this world.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that the woman at the counter was in distress, and I just happened to have the piece of information she needed. And then as soon as I gave that information to her, the pressure on my back went away, and I went home. So it was,
Wow.
things like that happen frequently.
Mm.
What we might watch on TV as some kind of TV show is my real life.
That's amazing, honestly. Yeah. So, how did those experiences challenge everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world?
One, it forced me to face my traumas because I had so many limiting beliefs within me of, I can't do this without this.
Mm.
I can't succeed without being married and having that double income. I can't teach anything. I don't have anything worthy of teaching. So all of these like limited beliefs got challenged very quickly. I also found that I was leaning on these whispers to support me, just as they would push me in a direction. They also pushed me away from things.
Mm.
So an example would be, shortly after returning from deployment,
Mm-hmm.
I came home to a marriage that was crumbling.
Yeah.
And I was so deep in betrayal of what was happening in front of me. When I asked for a divorce, my ex-husband within 24 hours was on a dating site. He was going to show me how he was very desirable in the world. And this part of me was so hurt. And I moved into a different bedroom. We're in separate bedrooms in the same house. We haven't separated yet. And he's on the phone as loud as he can be with his new girlfriend.
Mm.
He eventually moves into further away from where I was. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be nosy. I'm going to sneak out of the room. I was in the guest room at the time, sneak around. I'm with my ear to the wall, and I'm going to listen to this conversation. And the air conditioner would turn on. So I'd walk back to my room. 10 minutes later, air conditioner goes off. I sneak back over. Air conditioner goes back on. Sneak back, go back, air conditioner. And the voice in my head, that whisper came and said, this is no longer your business. You have
Yeah.
other places to be. Like, okay, got it.
How interesting. So, how did you find the courage to trust experiences that many people might not even understand, let alone fathom?
The whispers have been with me my whole life, but I've dismissed them. I just assumed that was my inner consciousness. It was my inner dialogue. It was whatever, my ego maybe. When I was deployed, part of my job was to move money as a commodity. We had to move millions of dollars, and we had to do it in a way that was discreet, but not so discreet that it attracted attention. So we would move money in plain sight. And then I would go fly to those locations to make sure the money arrived. So if we moved many millions of dollars in cash from Kuwait to Iraq, I would then go fly to Iraq and count the money. And on one particular occasion in May, we were heading out of Kuwait into Iraq on a circuit. So it would kind of go here, 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 land at your destination, and it would just keep rotating each day. So we were heading into Al Assad Marine Base at the time, and coming out of the base, we got spotted by ground fire. So as we're heading toward Baghdad, we were getting shot at.
Wow.
And I had not, I was Army. I'm field finance, money is a commodity. I have no training in what to do when your plane gets shot at. Like I had zero training. I was not Air Force.
Mm.
I didn't work with planes. I had zero experience. So all I could do is be a passenger. This is all happening. We're all exhausted. It's Kuwaiti. It's that Kuwait hot summer, that super humid, super
Yeah.
hot, like 120 degrees Fahrenheit, however we convert that, super hot. And so we're in the C-130. It's super hot. It's rumbly. It's loud. It's dark. We have no lights on because we don't want to be spotted. None of us were expecting it. None of the passengers. Obviously, the gunners in the windows were. They do this every day. We start to take fire, and I had about 3 seconds to process what was happening. Tink, 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 like BB guns, metal little pellets hitting aluminum, like the aluminium cans.
Mm.
And the sound processed so quickly, the whisper came in and said, "You're going to be okay. Don't worry about it." So I'm taking in all of these pieces of data very, very, very quickly. But that whisper came in and slowed my nervous system down. And that was the first time I listened to it with respect, and I stayed really calm in the moment. That didn't mean I knew what was going to happen next. It just meant that I didn't go into fight, flight, freeze. So from that point forward, I started to pay attention to it more and more. Did I trust it 100%? No. But it took the entire deployment to really many
Mm.
things happening, and then watching them unfold really set in why this is important for me to listen to the whispers.
So you often talk about whispers. What do they mean when you say whispers?
The
What do you?
whispers in my book are different than the whispers that I talk about in my stories. So the whispers in my stories are more mystic, which
Mhm.
is why I'm a metaphysical trauma researcher. I'm utilizing a lot of data that comes to me that other people don't have access to. The whispers that I am teaching in the book are the signals that the nervous system is reflecting back,
Mhm.
or maybe the soul, or the spirit of who someone is. Regardless of religious or spiritual beliefs, we have this part of us, this essence of who we are, that's desiring something. And when that desire whispers to us of yearning, that's a whisper. So the whispers that I have in me are mystical. The whispers that are in someone are innate to them and very organic to them.
Yes. So how can someone distinguish between fear and a whisper that's trying to guide them?
When a whisper comes in, the nervous system gets the message before the mind does.
Mm.
So if we process something, very often we're pulling from past experience. This happened in the past. We're on the lookout for this new other thing. When a whisper comes in, it's bypassing that inner dialogue,
Mhm.
and it's going straight into calming the body. It calms the body, and it's just like half a second, full second, 2 seconds before the mind processes what's happening. That whisper will say, "You're going to be okay." Maybe not in those words, maybe not in words at all, but there's this knowing. And that knowing, when we start trusting it and allow it to develop, becomes that inner wisdom. Some people call it higher self, allowing that to come in and share wisdom and understanding that the mind is not privy to. And so it's not something someone's going to get on the first try, maybe not the second try, but the more they practice, the stronger it gets.
If trauma whispers before it roars, what are some of the whispers people should start paying attention to?
Disrupted sleep,
Mhm.
unexpected spikes in agitation, irritation. Sometimes it's that little cramp in their tummy, headache, neck pain. It's also in the language. One of the things that I'm watching globally is this regression in language. We're
Mhm.
not writing like adults. Collectively, as a society, I am watching language regress. And for someone that wants to understand what that is, when we were in primary school, we talked very differently than we do now as adults. We might have had cute names for things, and now we have more formal names.
Mhm.
And I'm watching more and more people reference things from their childhood, TV shows. They're talking more about foods that and it's not that they're recalling a memory. They're talking with this language in present moment.
Mm.
And I'm watching this happen, or failing to take in new information. New facts come in and they're still utilizing old patterns. So I'm watching it in language shifts. I'm watching it in how people walk. We'll start to shuffle our feet. Our shoulders start to come down. These are simple little signals that become whispers. It's the body saying something's wrong.
Yeah.
The roar is the heart attack. The roar is the disease. The roar is a behavioral issue out in public.
Mm.
The roar gets loud and it requires action. The whispers will just keep whispering. And if they don't get heard, the volume goes up.
Have the whispers changed your life in ways you never expected?
They have led me to this moment. What a wild journey. The
Yeah.
past 10 years has been recognizance. And I say that not in a disrespectful way, but in a way of these whispers keep leading me to things that there's no syllabus. There's no
Mm.
outline of what I'm about to learn. I just walk into the lesson. And I'll give an example of frequently this happens. Someone is so eager to show me their home. Like, I want you to come. I want you to see my home. I want you to see my home. And I walk into the home and it contradicts their persona outside of them. So the love coach that I go to, who has no kitchen table, no place to break bread. The living room sofa faces the TV and there's no place for people to face each other to talk. So it's this persona on the outside, and then here's what's really happening at the subconscious level that they're not aware of back here. I went to a person's house. I was dating a guy a few years ago, and I walked into the home, and there were pictures of this little girl, and the little girl was never in any of our conversations.
Mm.
And I asked, like, oh, is this your niece? Because that was my assumption of it's important to him, but not enough that it would be in our first dating conversations. And he shared, no, that's my deceased daughter.
Oh.
But then as we're moving through the home, there's a giant portrait of her to the left of the TV. And they're all theater seats. There's no love sofa, the love seat sofa. There's nowhere for two people to touch each other.
Mm.
So it's all single seats, console, very masculine, stay away, don't touch me, facing the TV. But in the peripheral is his deceased daughter. So
Mm.
every moment of him eating in the living room, because there's no kitchen table in this house as well, eating in front of the TV, it's in the peripheral.
Mm.
And it was large. And we go up the stairs, there's a large painting of his deceased dog. But his son, who's living, is on these 8.5 by 11-inch, sheet size photos
Yeah.
going up, significantly smaller than the death in the home. And so I was constantly, and I still am, put in these places where I'm seeing things that perhaps other people wouldn't notice, but the whisper will say, pay attention to this. Pay attention to what's here. Pay attention to how they're walking. Pay attention to how they're talking. It'll just say, pay attention.
Wow. How interesting is that?
Yeah.
I mean, I get, you got to remember people you want to, you love them, you miss them. But the living get a small little mention, so to speak, kind of thing in the bigger event of life.
Yeah. It's the reflection of how big the depression was, how big the
Mm-hmm.
grief was
Mm.
in relation to the joy.
Yes. You teach that trauma doesn't only live in our memories, it lives in the body. Can you explain that? I know you slightly touched on that.
Yeah, the diseases and disorders, a lot of our diseases and disorders, this is going to counter what medical and mental health have talked about,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of our diseases are a result of our mental health, the
Mm-hmm.
mental illness. And I say that very confidently because I have helped individuals reverse their diagnosis. I've worked with people who were fully blind, adult onset, rare, medical
Mm-hmm.
term, rare irreversible genetic condition, hunker down, this is going to be your life. And that was reversed. She's back to seeing with full sight, full color, full depth.
Wow.
But what we learned is how much trauma in childhood, when we say, I don't want to see that anymore, that hurts my eyes, or I don't want to look, I don't want to see that, that has its own essence in us. And it creates a programming of protection. I've worked with people with lipedema. I've worked with people, fibromyalgia is that's my lane. When people come to me with fibromyalgia, I know we're looking for complex chronic grief in the body, and it can be inherited. It can be handed down. So very often medical doctors are looking at, they're looking at the symptoms at the biological level, but not looking at what the energetic component has contributed to this outcome. And I see this in many diseases and disorders, to include PTSD.
Yes. Yeah. What are some signs that someone may be carrying unresolved trauma without realizing it?
Heaviness, chronic fatigue, mystery symptoms. They have these pains in their stomach, but they go to the doctor and the blood work is not showing anything. There's no indicator. Most of the time, those are not physical issues. Those are mental health issues. And we don't, whether it's the manual here in the United States or the ICD in the UK, neither one are addressing the mental health component that affects the physical health, not to the extent that they will be in 10 years.
You say trauma can show up in relationships, intuition, family dynamics, and inherited patterns. Can you explain how that happens?
Let's go to the inherited patterns first. Very often, someone will come to me and say, I have fibromyalgia. I watched your video, Annie. I saw this on a social media live where you did this thing, and it uncovered this hidden information that the client was seeking. When someone comes to me with fibromyalgia, they usually say, well, my mother had it too. And my answer to that is, well, let's go find out what your mother had and why. Because just because somebody has a disorder doesn't mean it's genetic. It means epigenetically, we can inherit the markers to interpret a response in the same way. So if I am, let's say I'm very sweethearted and my mother was sweethearted and really things were very sensitive to our hearts, we both could have the same symptoms because our personalities were so heart driven. So then our heart becomes the weakest link in the body. So when trauma hits, it's going to sit and crack the weakest link first. I had an individual who he had fibromyalgia, and it just could not click in his head that it could be emotional. And well, my 7-year-old nephew has it too. I said, okay, well then that tells me that no one in your family is dealing with grief.
Yeah.
Let's go back in the family tree. So when we look at the inherited story and behavior pattern, we're going to find that grandparents probably had trauma. They didn't know what to do with their trauma. They expressed it. The child, which is then becomes our parents, mimic their parents' response to trauma. And all we're doing now is teaching bad behavior on how to handle trauma. And then it will sit in the same spots in the body.
Why do you believe healing needs to involve the body, mind, and soul?
There's a term called spiritual bypassing, and it applies to many different arenas, where we will see gurus and masters, and we will see these leaders say, do as I say, don't do as I do. And what's really happening, and we see it with many spiritual people that are very sick, but they're saying, okay, let's only focus on spiritual stuff, live in light, love in light, let's only focus on the good. And they're completely ignoring all of their shadows. If we don't incorporate all of that into our story, we're running away from a part of ourselves. So now we're not whole conscious. We're only partially conscious. We're only operating from our mind, ignoring two other attributes of our whole. And when I say soul, it's for simplicity. We could call it energy field. We could call it inner essence. It's different beliefs use different words. So when I say soul, I'm referring to the inner electrical current within us that has its own language. We can have a trauma, the current is incomplete, and the mind is not aware of it at all. But that incomplete experience still gets stored in the body. So we have all of these, there's different ways that we take on trauma. And at some point, all of the tiny stones accumulate and they become bigger than the boulder.
I can imagine, yes. What inspired you to create the Emprima methods and what does it stand for?
The Emprima methods is the toolkit. It's my whole toolbox of modalities because I use more than one modality. Even when I'm working with a client, unlike psychotherapeutic modalities, each client may need different tools in the same session or different tools throughout their series of working with me. So Emprima methods is the track that people are on. Embodied metaphysics. So it's embodying the whole conscious self. And metaphysics is saying the parts of us that also exist beyond what we can see, beyond what we know. Embodied metaphysics for personal reconciliation. And that's the reconciling, because we're not always, very often we talk about trauma as being broken. Sometimes we're not broken, it's just an incomplete cycle. Like, let's just finish the current. So personal reconciliation, integration, because that also gets skipped. In addition to spiritual bypassing, very often we go do half a thing, like an antibiotic. We take partial amount of the prescription, but we don't finish the whole prescription. We have to do the whole thing. The integration is super important as well, the rest after the work. And then the multidimensional advancement is when we're comfortable with that, let's go explore what else exists within us that is also a part of us, even if we can't see it.
You describe your work as a bridge between science and spirit. What does that mean?
In all of the work that I have done with that earpiece in me, I can't ignore the metaphysical part that makes me unique to this work. When I am talking about the metaphysical side, that earpiece is that individual person's essence. And it's telling me who they really are. If we were to strip away all the trauma, strip away all the limiting beliefs, strip away all of the junk, who is this person and what can they bloom into given the right conditions? And that's what I look at. That earpiece gives me the leverage to see someone in a way that other people cannot see. I'll give an example. I have worked with people that are looking at a small thing. They're looking at this one thing and they want to work on this one thing. They'll come to me and say, I want to work on this ailment. But when I go in, the soul might say, that's not where we need to look at all. That's where the mind has made a logical conclusion to go to, but it's only because they have a short drop-down menu and they don't understand what comes beyond this. So I had an individual with cardiac issue, severe cardiac issues, and it ended up being related to an event in their timeline where they had to make a very difficult choice. It wasn't a heart condition that was biological, that was genetic. It was the amount of weight that decision made in the timeline. So metaphysically, we're not working on the physical body, we're working on the timeline.
Wow.
And I have to use one of my modalities to go outside of time and space to reconcile that point in time that accrued this crack, fissure in the timeline. So once we address that, it reconciles it. Like, remember old school movie theater reels?
Yes.
And they would cut it and then they would trim it to get. That's kind of what we're doing. We're taking the parts that broke and then we're repairing them, and then the timeline flows differently.
That's a beautiful example. Yeah, I love that. Tell us about neurospirituality. How does it connect neuroscience, somatic healing, and metaphysics?
When we're looking at neurospirituality, it's a brain belief combination. And in my work, one of the frameworks that I teach on is the 6 layers of belonging. We have ourself. We have those that live within one arm's reach, which is typically a household. We have our friends and family, the next ring outside of that. Then there's community, nation, or collection of countries. If there are a lot of small countries together, it might be the collection of that. And then belief system. And belief system is everything that gets mirrored back to us and everything we're thinking that gets mirrored out to the world, which is why it's the outer layer. If our belief is that the world is unsafe, everything we see through all of those layers looks unsafe. And then everything unsafe mirrors back to us to prove that it's unsafe. And it validates the limited belief. when we look at neurospirituality, we're looking at how the brain processes our belief system and our experiences. So for me to have an experience where these hands push me in a direction and force me to move down a road, walk down a road I wasn't planning, and then I encounter another soldier who's walking by themselves, I now get validated with that spiritual experience now gets validated to my brain. My brain says, oh, this makes sense now. And it becomes an experience. In neurospirituality, when someone's working with me and we're working with mind, body, and soul as three voices, that is a spiritual experience because they're now incorporating a third attribute that they hadn't previously invited to the table for the conversation. And when they have that full embodied experience, it resonates through the whole system. The mind connects to the brain differently. The brain communicates to the body, the rest of the body differently. And that changes our vibration.
Wow, that's so interesting. Your forthcoming book is called Trauma Whispers Before It Roars. I love that title.
Yeah.
So that's a powerful title. What inspired it?
The lessons that I have been put in front of me since my deployment 10 years ago this book is the accumulation of that. And it is a really good book. It'll be available worldwide, but it'll be in United States English. It is a powerful book and it walks people very slowly through what is trauma. Because so many people, everyone that I have ever met and worked with that has Parkinson's disease will it is unanimous in my small sample of encounters. They will say, I don't have any trauma. But then as I keep talking to them, 30 minutes later, they're telling me about this horrific event. Like, well, that's trauma. Well, it doesn't feel like trauma. But what they don't realize is their whole body, the whole dopamine system now has been adjusted because of their experiences. There is trauma.
Wow.
So the book is walking people through very slowly of this is trauma. This is trauma. Let's go through your home. Let's take a checklist. And so in the book, anyone who reads the book in its first year of publication will have access to free worksheets. It'll later become a companion book, but those reading now will be able to access free downloads. And one of them is a checklist of let's take these multiple pages of paper that have checklists, and we're going to walk through the kitchen. We're going to walk through the front door. Are there extra locks on the door that don't need to be there? Is there a reflection of the nervous system saying that this world isn't safe and we need 7 locks on our door when our neighbors only have 1? Right. And we don't realize we do this. Do we lock the door even when we're home, even if we're in a very safe neighborhood? Why are we doing that? And it's not saying right or wrong. It's just saying, let's have a little bit of an awareness and ask ourselves why we're doing this. Why are we holding on to clothes that stopped fitting us 20 years ago?
Yes.
Are we stuck in that part of time that we can't move out of 20 years ago to be in the present moment? And so I go through the closets, I go through the bedroom, we go through the kitchen, the living space, the front door, and then storage spaces like a garage, attic, wherever we might have additional items. And what are we holding on to? Are we holding on to a memory? Are we holding on to a version of ourselves that no longer exists? And that's just one chapter. And then there's a chapter about pets. How are we talking to our pets, treating our pets, dressing our pets, feeding our pets? And is that a reflection of our nervous system? Very often people with trauma from infancy will treat their dogs like babies. They're honoring their inner child through their pet or their furry loved one. And so the book is let's look at the world a little bit differently and see it through my lens as a metaphysical researcher that has this earpiece that says pay attention. All of those moments that I received pay attention were collected and added to the book. So by the time someone gets through the whole book, they're seeing the world the way I see it. Wow. It's a really powerful book. I am incredibly proud of it.
I can't wait, and so you should be proud of it. It sounds amazing. Yeah. So listeners, the links will be in the show notes to get in touch with Annie. So listeners, it will be on pre-sale, so please do check out the links in the show notes. Pre-sales, book yours, get yours now. and it'll be delivered to you through Amazon or whatever your choice is of buying books. Please do go ahead and get it. It's a fantastic read, and I can't wait to get mine. So, what messages do you hope the readers will receive from this book?
If we're more aware of our own traumas, then we're more aware of our own behaviors. We walk with more intention because we have more awareness. And if we go from awareness, the next step is alignment. We make a change. We've now received information, we do something with it. After that is the alchemy. It's the magic. Socially, globally, what I want to see are more people being aware of their traumas so that they're not spreading them on other people. When we are in a traumatized state, it affects the people in our home.
Yes.
And those individuals go to school, they go to work, they go elsewhere, and they're sharing a piece of that didn't get disseminated. They took it on, and then they're going to end up sharing it like a virus. But it's so untouchable, we can't measure it, that it doesn't get treated in the same way. And yet it spreads just as fast. How the anger, the rage that we're seeing in our society today, that took 40 years, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years to surface. At some point, we have to start waking up and saying, oh, this is a result of trauma. And this is the reflection of the nation's nervous system being reflected back.
Absolutely.
And so the goal with the book is to show how trauma ripples through these layers, but so does healing. And a healed nation really takes care of their people, all of their people. And that's what we're all seeking, is to feel a sense of home everywhere we go.
Absolutely love that. And yes, absolutely. That is what we all want. Of course it is. And I love the way you explained it there. Through trauma, it's like a virus. We're spreading it to everyone. Absolutely. Yes. Is there one lesson from the book that has the potential to change how people view trauma forever?
So often we treat trauma like this bad thing. I don't want to deal with trauma because it's a sign of weakness. I don't want to face this because it's a weakness. We're not taught to see those wounds as bringing us to strength. We don't want to face them because we think they're shadows. But the truth is, I have never, in all of the work I've done with all of the belief systems, we get into some really dark stuff, and people automatically go into this cinematic, crazy thinking of, oh, it's this bad, demonic, satanic, all these weird words come in. And what it really is our grief and our fears. And when we make friends with those, they work in our favor, not against us. They help us serve, they help us perform, they help us grow, they help us lead. So in honoring all the parts of us, that whole person, the whole consciousness, all three attributes, in doing that, we are maturing and becoming the wise elders we didn't get. We are becoming the leaders, the reflection that we may not have gotten in our stages of development.
Yes. If there's one key takeaway you want every listener to walk away with today, what would that be?
What just came in is the world needs us to step up, and it's a call to action, because if we are disappointed in the world that we're seeing reflected back at us, somebody else is not going to change it. But if we each take one step forward, one small act, we start doing one small thing every day. Maybe that's just saying hi to the stranger in a safe space without asking someone to go outside of their boundaries of safety. We do one small thing. We call a friend that we haven't talked to in a while. If we start taking, each person on this whole planet takes one extra step a day in an action that helps bring connection, that's 8 billion steps. They're all little pebbles, but those pebbles will outweigh the boulder. They will outweigh the weight of the pain and the frustration that we're seeing reflected back at us. We become the person that answers our call for help.
I love that. Absolutely. And I can't agree more with you. Yes. So, where can the listeners find you online, connect with you, and learn more about your work and pre order your book, Annie?
The book will be on my website. if anyone sees my name on the video, it's annieemprima.com, which will direct them to oneemprima.com. There's only one of me. So anywhere in the world, you type in this name in any search engine, any AI, there is only one of me. You will get me. If there's something else, it's a copycat pretending to be me. There's only one of me. So follow me on social media if you want more of the woo-woo side. That's TikTok. More of the clinical side, where I speak to my more professional academic audience. That's LinkedIn. But I'm also on other platforms as well, Substack, Facebook. If anyone types in this name, you will find me in your preferred method.
That's fabulous. Listeners, please do go ahead and connect with Annie and find out more. It's such an interesting subject, and you will learn so much from it. I mean, who doesn't want to heal that trauma that we've got that is unresolved? Do that on all the different platforms, whichever you want, and all the links will be in the show notes. So please do go ahead and connect. Annie, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your wisdom, your stories with us today. And by doing so, you've impacted so many people and truly made a difference. I really want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank
Annie
you.
Emprima.
Thanks, Anita.
It's been my pleasure. We are all about Create the Courage to Be Fearless podcast. What is your definition of courage?
Courage is doing the scary thing. It is doing the scary thing. It's taking the action even when fear exists. Because fear is our friend, but fear is not a wall. So doing it anyway.